Good morning. The first item of business is general questions, and at question number 1 I call Emma Roddick.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it is supporting and encouraging diversity in Scotland's businesses, including who leads, owns and works within them. Minister Tom Arthur.
We are committed to advancing diversity across Scotland's economy. Our Fair Work Action Plan and anti-racist employment strategy set out support for employers across the economy to address workplace inequalities and enable marginalised groups to enter, thrive and lead in organisations. We are also implementing the recommendations of the Pathways Review, co-authored by our newly appointed Chief Entrepreneur, Anna Stewart. The South of Scotland Enterprise Regional Pathways Pre-Start Pilot and the Pathways Fund have opened the opportunities of entrepreneurship to women and other underrepresented and under-supported groups.
Emma Roddick.
Thank you. Last week I had the pleasure of hosting Out Britain, the UK's first LGBTQ+ Chamber of Commerce, in the Parliament to discuss its recent report on the massive contribution that LGBTQ+ business makes to the economy. One issue that came up again and again is the lack of data collection, not just for LGBTQ+ owned, run and employing businesses, but diversity more generally. Given the evidence points to diversity in business being good for productivity both internally and externally, what more can the Scottish Government do to identify and support those diverse businesses? Minister.
I thank the member for her supplementary question. Presiding Officer, the Minister for Business, Richard Lochhead, attended last week's LGBTQ+ Business Count report launch. The report recognises the value of diversity in Scotland's business community and the contribution that LGBTQ+ business leaders make to our economy, but also highlights the challenges that many LGBTQ+ people have faced in their business journey. Mr Lochhead has offered to meet with Out Scotland to discuss their research in more detail, and indeed his work is underway to arrange a further follow-up meeting with officials to discuss the issues that the member raises in more detail.
Question number 2, Stephanie Callaghan.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government when it last engaged with the UK Government transmission operators and the National Energy System Operator to explore the possibility of reviewing the transmission impact assessment in light of reports that this limits Scotland's solar energy development.
Cabinet Secretary Gillian Martin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government regularly engages with key energy stakeholders, including Ofgem, the National Energy System Operator, NESO, transmission operators and counterparts in the UK Government to ensure transmission infrastructure delivers for Scotland. And this includes exploration of the transmission impact assessment threshold and consideration of the impact that this has on energy users in Scotland.
Stephanie Callaghan.
Thank you. Solar Energy UK recently published a report showing that by 2035 solar and battery projects could contribute over £5 billion in gross value added if the sector continues to grow. Now, for Scotland to secure its fair share of these economic benefits, it must remain attractive to investors. However, the current disparity with the TIA threshold in Scotland remains at just 200 kilowatts compared to the proposed 5 megawatts threshold in England and Wales, makes it easier and cheaper to connect projects south of the border. So can the Minister outline what steps the Scottish Government has taken to ensure that solar is not left behind in Scotland, that it has a clear and growing role in our energy mix, and that it can reach its full potential and help Scotland continue to lead the way in clean energy and benefit fully from the transition to renewables?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thanks, Stephanie Callaghan, for that question. We recognise the importance, of course, of energy generated from solar in contributing to the decarbonisation of our energy supply in Scotland and our just transition to net zero. And we've already removed a number of barriers to enable greater deployment of solar across Scotland, particularly on the roofs of buildings. And we will shortly publish the Solar Vision to outline further work that we're undertaking. And while matters relating to the regulation and operation of the electricity system are reserved, we continue to engage closely with the UK Government and NESO on their plans for the GB energy system.
Question number 3, Alexander Burnett.
To ask the Scottish Government, further to the First Minister's recent comments regarding the mothballing of nurseries, what systems are in place to ensure local authorities comply with national guidance?
Minister Natalie Dawn-Innes.
Local authorities are responsible for the management of their ELC estate. Statutory guidance sets out the Scottish Government's expectations in relation to the mothballing of nurseries. Any mothballing must be temporary, and parents should still be able to make applications for children to attend mothballed nurseries, allowing councils to reopen them if circumstances change. As the First Minister stated last month, we are reviewing the guidance to provide greater clarity on whether it is an appropriate action to take. Local authorities are responsible for complying with their statutory duties and are democratically accountable to their local electorate.
Alexander Burnett.
As the Minister knows, it was announced just before Easter that 4 nurseries in Aberdeenshire will be mothballed, and this issue was raised in the Chamber, where the First Minister and Minister stated the requirement for local consultation. Now, no consultation has taken place with any of the communities affected, and parents are experiencing poor communication with council officers. We've also received the impact assessment on which the decision for one of the nursery closures, which was approved on the 30th of April, over a month after they announced the closures on the 28th of March. So can the Minister outline what action the Scottish Government will take to ensure that national mothballing guidance is followed, and what can parents do when councils are not following their own processes?
Minister.
Well, I find what Mr Burnett brings to me very concerning. We do expect local authorities to consult with parents, carers and families to ensure that they're meeting local needs in relation to childcare. And we want all families to have access to high quality and flexible childcare that meets their needs. Understanding, of course, that there has to be some level of flexibility for local authorities in relation to managing their estate, prompted by, for example, changes to demographics. I've already alluded to the review of the mothballing guidance, but I'm more than happy to discuss Mr Burnett's concerns that he's brought to me today in the context of the review.
Christine Graham.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I note that 2 weeks ago the First Minister has said, and the Minister has alluded to that they were reviewing the guidance. But given that Conservative-led Scottish Borders Council is already making decisions on nurseries, although they have compromised and are not going ahead with what they originally decided, can the Minister provide a timeline, and if not today, as soon as practicable, when this revised guidance will be available to the public?
Minister.
I appreciate members, Ms Graham and other members' concerns around this, and as the First Minister highlighted, I really do think it's important that greater clarity is provided on whether mothballing is that appropriate action to take. Now, in relation to the question around timeline, the guidance review is underway and ministers will consider the findings when they are available, and I'm happy to commit to providing the member with a further update once those timings are available.
Thank you. Question number 4, Finlay Carson.
To ask the Scottish Government what discussions the Net Zero Secretary has had with the Rural Affairs Secretary regarding the potential environmental and biodiversity impact of the proposed Galloway National Park.
Secretary Gillian Martin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government received Nature Scott's report on the Galloway and Ayrshire National Park proposal on Monday the 5th of May. We will now carefully consider the outcome of the consultation and Nature Scott's advice on the proposal before taking any further decisions. This will include full consideration of the potential environmental, social and economic impacts, and the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs, Land Reform and Islands will update Parliament on next steps before recess, subject to parliamentary business.
Finlay Carson.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. Biodiversity, the natural environment and landscapes are of course key factors when it comes to designating any new national parks. Economic sustainability and growth are also critical considerations. Presiding Officer, the designation process in Galloway has been less than satisfactory, with significant issues including a perceived bias and lack of any detail on how a Galloway National Park would or could be different from the existing 2, given the area's hugely important dairy farming, forestry and renewable sectors. This has resulted in mistrust and divisions within communities which will take years to heal. We've heard that the Scottish Government have now received the consultation report from Nature Scott and is currently giving its consideration. The report has not been published as promised, with constituents now having to wait until the end of June for the Government to respond and with their decision. My understanding is there is not the majority in favour of a national park proposal, and full designation order is unlikely to be made. But on that basis, will the Cabinet Secretary ensure in her discussions with the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs that the Scottish Government will not simply walk away without recognising and addressing the unique challenges and opportunities facing rural businesses and the tourist and hospitality businesses
Mr Carson,
in Galloway?
I'm going to put your question to the Cabinet Secretary.
Well, as Mr Carson knows, there was a very thorough and comprehensive consultation process. There was 5,000 consultation surveys that were completed and over 30 consultation events were held across the proposed area, with more than 1,000 people attending. So I think the Cabinet Secretary has to look at the results of the consultation and take them seriously. There's an awful lot of information included in that consultation, and she will advise the Parliament when she is ready to do so.
I call Craig Hoy.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. When the Minister looks at the responses to the consultation, will she impress upon Nature Scott the importance of looking at the postcodes of those who responded, so that we can tell whether or not those who live within those communities are those who are most opposed to it?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, as Mr Hoy knows, I am not the Minister responsible for this particular decision, so I will pass on his comments to Marie Goujon, the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs.
Thank you. Question number 5 is not lodged. At question number 6, I call Alec Crowley.
Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the Scottish Funding Council's Colleges Indicative Funding Allocations 25-26 and any impact this may have on funding settlement for Fife College.
Mr Graham Day.
Presiding Officer, building on the direction I provided to the SFC in this year's letter of guidance, the SFC has worked with the sector to bring about important changes to how funds are allocated. This has included responding to explicit asks from the sector that funds are distributed in a way that better reflects differences in the cost of delivering different courses in different places. These changes are reflected in the publication of the indicative college allocations for academic year 25-26. But the SFC has also put in place transition arrangements that mean that no college will see a funding reduction in academic year 25-26 compared to 24-25.
Alec Crowley.
Presiding Officer, I would have to say that's not the case. The overall increase of 2.6% funding from the SFC basically gives colleges a standstill budget. But when you look further into it, you see that Fife will receive 1.26, which is a real terms cut in their budget. And as a result of that, there will be a significant impact on the provision of college provision in Fife. Does the Minister accept that if the policy of the Government to drive the economy is going to be successful, colleges have a key part to play in that, and Fife College cannot take this cut?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, as I indicated in my initial answer, these allocations reflect the SFC responding to a specific ask from the sector. And in agreeing to that request, the SFC made clear to the colleges there would be winners and losers. But as I said, mindful of the financial challenges faced by colleges, the SFC put in place transition arrangements to give those adversely affected a softer landing, meaning that once additional monies are counted in, no college sees a reduction in 25-26 compared to 24-25. As Mr Rowley pointed out, there is an increase in overall funding for Fife College of 1.26%, and I understand that discussions are ongoing between the SFC and Fife College. But I do just say gently to Mr Rowley, one of the additional pressures that the college is facing as he talks about the inflationary challenges is the employer national insurance contribution situation, and I'm sure he knows full well from where that pressure has come.
Willie Rennie.
There is absolutely no way that Fife College asked for a real terms cut in its budget. That's why the Government needs to think again along with the Funding Council, because the potential in Fife is huge. We've got oil and gas jobs that are fading out. We've got offshore renewable potential, which is huge, as well as all the other sectors. So surely the Minister must understand that we cannot throw away that opportunity.
Minister.
Presiding Officer, the changes in allocations reflect the number of high-tariff courses that each institution offers, and that is what the institutions looked, as a collective, looked for to be recognised. But in addition to Fife College's excellent work that they're undertaking with the SFC on curriculum transformation, which is potential for them, I am open to exploring whether we could add a further premium into the mix, one which recognises delivery of courses linked to local and national economic need, and which might provide a balancing mechanism, if you like, in some instances. So I am open to exploring that.
Question number 7, Liam MacArthur.
Good.
to ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on its plans to introduce a cruise ship levy, including the option for local authorities to apply a point of entry levy.
Cabinet Secretary Shona Robertson.
On the 27th of February, the Scottish Government commenced a consultation on the potential to give local authorities the power to introduce a cruise ship levy. That consultation closes on the 30th of May, and we will consider next steps in due course after the responses have been analysed.
Liam MacArthur.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response? She'll recall from the discussions during the passage of the visitor levy legislation the concerns I raised about the ability of local authorities such as Orkney Islands Council to introduce a visitor levy without a similar levy applying to cruise traffic, but the administration costs of that would be significant. So I was encouraged by the consultation launched back in February that did include the possibility of a cruise ship levy, but also the possibility of a point of entry charge. This is something that has been backed by Destination Orkney as a way of making it fairer, simpler and more equitable. So I appreciate the consultation is ongoing, but will the Cabinet Secretary please give an undertaking to look very seriously at the option of a point of entry levy?
Cabinet Secretary.
So can I reassure Liam MacArthur that the consultation it provides a suitable opportunity to ask for views on a point of entry levy, as this has been raised with Scottish ministers. Further detailed consideration will be required on the potential impacts for local authorities, tourism bodies and visitors before making any decisions on whether to move ahead with any point of entry levy.
Brief supplementary, Stuart McMillan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Cabinet Secretary provide an update on what assessment the Scottish Government has made of the positive impact which cruise ships and their passengers make to not just Scotland's tourism economy as a whole, but also to the economies of the local communities where the ships dock?
Cabinet Secretary.
There is some uncertainty around how much passengers and crews spend on shore per day. In the published BRIA, the Scottish Government presented a range of estimates of the overall passenger and crew spending on shore in Scotland in 2024, and this ranged from 55 million to 102 million. Of course, the spending will generally be concentrated around the port where the cruise ship is docked, although passengers may, of course, travel further from some ports than others. The BRIA highlights some local surveys that identified benefit from increased visitor spending at local attractions, increased footfall in town centres and new employment opportunities.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. There will be a brief pause before we move on to the next item of business.